She was 18 years old. One Sunday evening in July, she had spent the whole day with her family. Swimming. Laughing. Taking pictures. Soaking up a summer day the way you do when you have no idea it is going to be your last. And all she was doing was going home. She never made it. At a train station that thousands of people pass through every single day, right there in Oakland, California, in a matter of seconds, Nia Wilson's life was taken from her. No argument. No confrontation. No warning of any kind. Just a stranger. And a knife. And a family that would never be the same again. Her sister was stabbed too, and survived. The man responsible was caught the very next day. He was put on trial. Convicted of first-degree murder. Sentenced to life in prison without any possibility of parole. But here's what has never gone away. Even after the arrest, the trial, the verdict, and the sentencing, one question still does not have a real answer. Why? Why Nia? Why her sisters? Why that night? Before we go any further, drop a comment right now. Tell me where in the world you are watching this from and what time it is over there. I want to see exactly how far Nia's story travels tonight. You're watching Cases Decoded. And today, we are telling the full story of Nia Wilson. There is something that happens when a case goes viral. The person at the center of it gets reduced. They become a name. A headline. A photo that news channels use over and over again. And slowly, without anyone meaning for it to happen, the full person disappears underneath the story of what happened to them. That is not how we do things here on Cases Decoded. So before we talk about what happened at MacArthur BART Station on the night of July 22, 2018, you need to know who Nia Wilson actually was. Because she was not a headline. She was not a tragedy. She was a person, a real, full, complicated, beautiful person, and she deserves to be remembered that way. Nia Wilson was born and raised in Oakland, California, the youngest of 8 siblings. If you know Oakland, you know that growing up there shapes you in a specific way. The city has a culture that runs deep. Community means something there. People look out for each other. And there is also a hard reality that comes with it, the kind of reality that a lot of young people in Oakland have to learn to navigate before they are even fully grown. Nia navigated it with style. In a family of 8 children, the youngest can sometimes get lost in the noise. Nia never did. People noticed her. Not because she was loud or demanding or trying to be the center of attention, but because of the way she moved through the world. There was something about her that drew people in. A warmth. A steadiness. A sense that when Nia was in the room, things were going to be okay. Her sister Malika Harris would later tell the New York Times that Nia was the kind of person who showed up for people. Always. Without being asked. If someone in the family was struggling, quietly falling apart, trying to hold it together and not wanting to say so, Nia would notice before anyone else did. She was the one coming to find you. Sitting down next to you. Giving you the kind of pep talk that actually reached something inside you and made you feel like you could keep going. Her family called her PG, pretty girl. And yes, she cared about how she looked. Deeply. Her sister would laugh telling the story of how Nia could hold up the entire household just trying to pick out the right outfit, even if they were just running to the store at midnight. She was known for her makeup skills. Her eye for putting things together. The way she walked into a room already looking like she had thought about it. But PG was never just a nickname about appearance. It was about the standard she held for herself. The way she carried herself in the world. She was creative too. She and her cousins had started a rap group together. They called themselves Girls in the Hood, and they were working on music, writing songs, recording, building something of their own. Nia posted videos online. She had a voice and she wanted people to hear it. At the time she was killed, Nia had been working at a ThredUp clothing distribution center in Oakland, ThredUp being an online consignment company. She was saving money, building towards something. She had talked about joining the army, becoming a paramedic, working in criminal justice. She had a lot of ideas about where her life could go, and none of them were small. She had been close to completing high school at Dewey Academy in Oakland, a school designed to give students who needed a different path to graduation the chance to finish on their own terms. She was a December graduate candidate. She was so close. And there is a story that her family tells that says more about who Nia was than any description ever could. At a family gathering not long before she was killed, her aunt began choking. Right there at the table, in the middle of a normal family moment, her aunt was in trouble and people around her were panicking and not sure what to do. Nia did not hesitate. She stepped forward, got behind her aunt, and performed the Heimlich maneuver. Her aunt survived. She was a teenager. She had not been trained. She just knew what to do and she did it. That right there tells you everything about who Nia Wilson was. Not who she was going to be someday. Who she already was at 18 years old. She was someone who acted when other people froze. Someone who stayed when other people ran. Someone who showed up, every single time, for the people around her. And the people who loved her were not just losing who she was. They were losing everything she was still becoming. Oakland shaped Nia. And part of what that means is that loss was not something she encountered for the first time on the night she died. It was something she had already lived through. Already carried. Already chosen to face without turning away. When Nia was still just a teenager, she fell into grief for the first time in a way that did not let go. Her boyfriend, Josiah Pratt Rose, was 15 years old when he died. It was Memorial Day weekend of 2016. He and his best friend, Jamari Wilson, had gone out to Woodward Reservoir in Stanislaus County, a wide stretch of open water near Oakdale, California. They were out on a boat with family. The day was warm. And at some point, the way 15-year-olds sometimes do, they jumped off the boat together and tried to swim to shore. Neither one of them made it back. Both boys were from Oakland. Both were 15 years old. The search went on for days before their bodies were found on the south side of the reservoir. And for Nia, still so young, still figuring out who she was and what her life was going to look like, losing Josiah was the kind of thing that changes you. Not just for a season. It changes the shape of how you see the world. And then, while she was still carrying that grief, something else happened. A memorial service was held in downtown Oakland to honor Josiah and Jamari. People came together to grieve, to remember them, to hold each other up in the kind of loss that does not make sense at any age, let alone at 15. Nia was there. Standing in that crowd, trying to find some kind of peace in remembering the boy she had loved. And then someone opened fire. A group of young people had just finished performing a dance routine at the memorial. The crowd was beginning to settle. And then shots rang out into the street. A teenage girl who had been one of the performers was hit and went down right there in front of everyone, bleeding, fighting to hold on. In that moment, Nia was standing right next to her. The girl asked her to stay. And Nia stayed. She did not run. She did not freeze. She got down right there beside that girl on a downtown Oakland street and she stayed with her, kept her company, held that space for her until the paramedics came and rushed her away. The girl did not survive. But she did not die alone. Because Nia, a teenager who was already carrying the loss of her boyfriend, who had come to that memorial trying to find some kind of comfort, made the choice, in the middle of chaos and gunfire, to stay beside a stranger who needed someone. Her sister Malika would later say it simply, any way she could help, she would be there for you. That was just who she was. It did not matter what the situation was. It did not matter what it cost her. She stayed. Think about that for a moment. Think about what it takes to be that person. And then think about what it meant for her sister Letifa, on the platform at MacArthur Station, when the moment came and she made the exact same choice for Nia. Some things run deep in a family. Some things get passed down not through words but through watching someone live it out. July 22, 2018 was a Sunday. And it started the way good summer days do, slowly, warmly, with people who love each other and nowhere urgent to be. Nia and two of her sisters, Letifa and Tashia, had made their way out to Concord, California, to spend the day with family at a relative's home. There was a pool in the backyard. There was food. There was the kind of afternoon that stretches out and does not ask anything from you, where hours pass and nobody is watching the clock because nobody needs to. Nia was right in the middle of it all. Dressed the way she always liked to dress, put together, intentional, looking the way she wanted to look. Taking pictures. Recording little moments on her phone. Moving between conversations, between laughter, between the kind of ordinary family moments that you only realize were precious after they are gone. There was something underneath the day though. A weight sitting quietly in the background that nobody talked about directly but everyone felt. A family member was seriously ill. And when the people around you are sick in a way that makes time feel uncertain, a day like this carries something extra in it. You are not just together. You are choosing it. You are present in a way that you might not be otherwise, because you understand at some level that these moments are not guaranteed. Nia understood that. She had already learned it. There was also something else going on with her specifically. Just 2 days before that Sunday, on the Friday, Nia had mentioned something to her sister Malika. She had a job interview coming up that week. Something new. But she would not say anything more than that. No name of the company. No type of work. No details at all. Even when Malika pushed her, trying to get her to share, Nia stayed quiet. She was keeping it close. She wanted it to be hers first, something she could walk into on her own terms and then share with everyone once it was real and settled and hers to announce. That is where she was in life at 18 years old. Standing right at the beginning of something. Holding it quietly. Ready for what came next. As the evening came on and the day began winding down, the plan changed. The person who was supposed to give Nia and her sisters a ride back to Oakland had already left. So the three of them, Nia, Letifa, and Tashia, made the same decision they had made before. They would take Bart home. Now here is something important. Nia hated Bart. Her sister Tashia would later say this on the witness stand at trial, that Nia thought it was nasty. That she would not even sit down on the seats because she worried about germs. That she avoided it at every possible opportunity. But it was one ride. They had each other. It would be fine. A family member dropped all three of them at the Concord BART station at around 9 o'clock that night. Nothing felt off. Nothing about that moment stood out as anything other than what it was, three sisters at the end of a good day, catching a train home. They boarded their first train at Concord Station and settled in for the ride. The train moved through stop after stop. Letifa pulled out her phone somewhere along the way and called their father, Ansar Muhammad. Told him they were almost home. Routine. Normal. Almost there. What none of them knew was that John Lee Cowell had gotten onto that same train at Concord Station. He had been there from the beginning. And for the entire 6-stop ride from Concord toward Oakland, he sat across from Nia. Watching her. Sometimes looking directly at her. Sometimes looking away. Waiting. At 9:36 p.m., the train pulled into MacArthur Station in Oakland. The doors opened. People began moving the way they always do at MacArthur Station on a Sunday night. Some stepping off the train, others getting on. The platform was busy. Just another transfer stop in the middle of a regular evening. Tashia stepped off first, moving toward the platform where they would catch their connecting train home. Right behind her came Nia and Letifa. But they paused. A woman was coming through the doors pushing a stroller, and both sisters stepped back to let her through. A small moment. The kind of ordinary, thoughtful thing you do without thinking about it. And then everything changed. Tashia would later testify in court that she did not see it happen. There was no sound, no warning, nothing that told her that anything was wrong. 1 second everything was completely normal. And then Nia came stumbling through the train doors, bleeding, her hand pressed hard against her neck, blood already soaking through. Tashia's first thought was that her sister had tripped. That is how fast it happened. That is how little warning there was. And then she looked closer. She saw the wound on Nia's neck. She saw the blood coming from her mouth. And she understood exactly what she was looking at. Latifa had been stabbed too, in the neck, right there in that doorway, in that split second that nobody saw coming. The train doors slid open, then closed, then opened again in the confusion. Tashia ran back onto the platform screaming for help. Screaming for anyone who could do something. Nia collapsed on the platform floor of MacArthur Station. Latifa dropped straight down beside her. She pressed both hands against her sister's neck and tried to hold back the bleeding. There was so much blood. People all around them on that platform were frozen, or panicking, or running, or trying to understand what they were witnessing. The woman with the stroller, the same one they had stepped back for just moments before, was still there on the platform. She reached into the stroller and handed Latifa a baby blanket. Something to press against the wound. And as Nia lay there on that concrete platform floor, she called out for her sister. Taifa. 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 Latifa did not let go. I got you, baby. I got you. We're gonna get through this. I got you. You're my baby sister. All around them, chaos. People screaming. Running. Tashia on the phone trying to reach their father Ansar Muhammad, trying to put words to something that had no words at all. And then Latifa looked up from where she was kneeling on that floor. Standing at the top of the nearby stairs was a man. He was not running. He was not panicking. He was just standing there, wiping the blood off his knife. BART police officers were already inside MacArthur Station when it happened. They were flagged down on the platform almost immediately. An officer got to Nia and got down beside her, doing everything he could to slow the bleeding and keep her alive until paramedics arrived. Latifa, who was also seriously wounded, was rushed off the platform and into an ambulance. Paramedics worked on Nia right there on that platform. A forensic pathologist would later testify in court that the wound was 2 inches deep and had cut through her carotid artery. They gave everything they had. It was not enough. Nia Wilson died on that platform at MacArthur BART Station. She was 18 years old. Just hours before, she had been laughing beside a pool with her family in Concord. She had been taking pictures and living in the moment the way you do when you do not know you are running out of them. She had been keeping a secret about a job interview that she was quietly excited about, holding it close until it was hers to share. And now she was gone. If this story is hitting you right now, if you can feel the weight of what just happened, go ahead and hit that like button. It takes 1 second and it helps this story reach more people who need to hear it. And if you are new to Cases Decoded, subscribe right now. Every single case we cover on this channel is someone who deserves to be remembered the right way. While the scene at MacArthur Station was still unfolding, while paramedics were still on the platform, while people were still trying to process what they had just seen, Ansar Muhammad was already in his car and moving. He had gotten a call from one of his daughters. Rushed. Frantic. Barely able to get the words out. Something is wrong. He did not know yet how wrong. By the time he pulled up to MacArthur Station, the street outside was filled with emergency vehicles. He watched through the window as they loaded Latifa into an ambulance headed to Highland Hospital in Oakland. The family gathered at Highland Hospital through the night. Doctors came out and told them that Letifa was going to survive. She had been stabilized. And for one moment, just one, that was the only thing in the world that mattered. But when Letifa came back to herself in that hospital bed, she asked the question she had to ask. The question she already feared the answer to. Where is Nia? That is when they told her. She tried to get out of the bed. She was screaming. The grief and the shock and the guilt all landed at once because in her mind, she had been right there. She had been kneeling beside her. She had pressed her hands against that wound and held on and told her little sister she was going to be okay. And she still could not save her. BART Police Chief Carlos Rojas would stand in front of cameras the following morning and say that in close to 30 years of police experience, what happened at MacArthur Station the night before was probably one of the most vicious attacks he had ever seen. Back at the station, investigators began piecing together the timeline. And what they found early on reframed everything about how they understood the attack. There had been no argument. No confrontation. No words exchanged between Cowell and the sisters at any point during the evening. Nothing from Nia's side, nothing from Letifa's side, that triggered anything. From everything gathered at the scene and from every witness account, this was a completely unprovoked attack. A man had simply moved on two young women and attacked them without any reason that anyone on that platform could identify. And that was terrifying in a specific way. Because if there was no reason, no connection, no trigger, nothing was stopping him from doing this again to someone else. What investigators had that worked in their favor was the surveillance system inside MacArthur BART Station. High-definition cameras covered the platform, the entrances, and the inside of the trains themselves. BART police immediately locked down footage from Concord Station, from the train the sisters had been riding, and from MacArthur Station. And what they found on that footage changed the entire picture. Cowell had not just happened to be at MacArthur Station that night. He had boarded the exact same train as the sisters at Concord Station, right at the beginning of their journey home. The surveillance footage showed him sitting directly across from Nia on that train for the full 6-stop ride from Concord to MacArthur. Sometimes looking straight at her. Sometimes looking away. But staying. Waiting. Prosecutor Butch Ford would later play 26 full minutes of that unedited surveillance footage in the courtroom during the trial. 26 minutes of John Lee Cowell sitting across from an 18-year-old girl, watching her, while she stood in that train car not knowing he was there. The courtroom was completely silent. This was not random in the way most people understand the word. He had not stumbled into this. He had chosen them on that train in Concord and he had followed them all the way to MacArthur. After the attack, the cameras caught him leaving the station on foot. He stopped not far away and discarded a backpack and a sweatshirt. Investigators recovered both. Inside the backpack, they found identification. The name on that ID was John Lee Cowell. When they ran that name through their system, something else came up immediately. Just 4 days before the attack, 4 days, a man by that exact name had been stopped by BART police at a station for fare evasion. That stop had been recorded on body camera. Investigators now had a clear, current photograph of exactly who they were looking for. And then they started pulling his history. And the picture that emerged was not the picture of someone who appeared from nowhere. His criminal record stretched back years. Drug offenses. Assault. Battery. Multiple arrests across the Bay Area. In 2016, he had walked into a grocery store in El Sobrante and brandished what appeared to be a handgun during a robbery. He was convicted and sentenced to 2 years in state prison. A restraining order had been filed against him by a woman in Concord. Another had been filed by Kaiser Hospital in Richmond after he reportedly threatened staff there. And according to his own family, he had been released from a California state mental health facility just 2 months before the night of the attack. Released with nothing in place. No treatment plan. No structure. No support. Just released. Within 24 hours of the attack, a full regional manhunt was underway. He had not gone far. The following afternoon, someone riding BART made an anonymous call to police. They had spotted a man on the train who matched the description that had been released to the public. He had a distinctive tattoo, the same one that appeared clearly in the surveillance images. Officers responded immediately to Pleasant Hill BART station and found John Lee Cowell aboard an Antioch-bound train. He was taken into custody without any resistance at all. He was charged with first-degree murder and attempted murder. Alameda County District Attorney Nancy O'Malley announced that prosecutors would seek a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. When news of the arrest spread through Oakland on Monday afternoon, there was something that felt like relief. He was off the street. He was in custody. The man who had done this was not still out there. But relief in a situation like this has a ceiling. And Oakland reached that ceiling quickly. The arrest answered the who. It did nothing to answer the why. And without a motive, without any explanation at all for why John Lee Cowell had sat across from Nia Wilson on a train and decided to take her life, the community was left to fill that silence themselves. When it became widely known that Cowell was white and that Nia and Lettifo were black, the grief in Oakland turned into something harder and heavier. Many people reached the same conclusion without being told to. That this was not random in any meaningful sense. That two young black women had been targeted. That Nia Wilson was dead because of who she was. The day after the attack, people began gathering at MacArthur BART Station, the exact spot where Nia had died less than 24 hours before. It started as a vigil. Candles. Flowers. People standing together in grief, saying her name out loud, refusing to let her become just another story. And then it grew. It moved. It became a march through the streets of Oakland, with people chanting and calling for answers and demanding that the system, the same system that had released John Lee Cowell 2 months earlier with nothing in place, actually do what it was supposed to do. Cowell's family released a public statement during this time. They expressed their condolences to the Wilson family. But they also said something that landed very differently in the community. They said their son had a long history of mental illness, bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, and that he had been living on the streets without treatment after being released from a state facility. They said the system had failed him. They had even filed a restraining order against him at one point, which tells its own story about how serious his behavior had become. To some people, that context mattered. To many in Oakland, it felt like the beginning of a narrative designed to protect him from the full weight of what he had done. The question of why was not going away. And it would not be answered until the trial. The trial of John Lee Cowell did not begin quickly. From the time of his arrest in July 2018 to the start of trial proceedings in February 2020, there were repeated delays. Cowell's competency to stand trial was challenged multiple times. Psychiatric experts were brought in. At one point, a judge accused him of malingering, of faking or exaggerating symptoms to avoid trial. 2 psychiatric experts ultimately agreed that he was mentally fit to proceed. And in February of 2020, Alameda County Superior Court Judge Alan Heimer brought the case to trial. For the Wilson family, who had been waiting for nearly 2 years, the trial was not just a legal proceeding. It was the place where the world would finally have to look at what happened to Nia and decide what it meant. They showed up. Dozens of family members and supporters attended nearly every single day of the trial, filling that courtroom with people who loved Nia and were not going to let her absence go unwitnessed. Prosecutor Butch Ford laid out the case directly. He played the unedited surveillance footage from the train, all 26 minutes of Cowell sitting across from Nia on the ride from Concord to MacArthur, watching her. He told the jury to believe their eyes. He argued that what the footage showed was not impulse. Not confusion. Not a man in the grip of a psychotic break who did not know what he was doing. It showed a man who chose, who waited, and who moved when the moment came. Tashia took the stand and walked the jury through the night. The family day in Concord. The decision to take BART home. The moment the doors opened at MacArthur Station. She described in her own words the second she realized what had happened to her sister. She said she was in shock. She said she was trying to figure out what she was seeing. Letifa took the stand too. She broke down. She had to be helped out of the courtroom at one point, supported on her feet, overwhelmed by the weight of reliving every second of that platform. Through her tears she told the jury, "That was my little sister. I am always supposed to protect my little sister." Defense attorney Christina Moore admitted in her opening statement that Cowell had stabbed Nia and Letifa Wilson. She did not dispute the facts. What she disputed was intent. She argued that what happened was a rash, impulsive act driven by schizophrenia, that in the weeks before the stabbing, Cowell had experienced multiple psychotic episodes, heard voices, and believed people were out to kill him. She argued that he was not a man who chose to do this. He was a man who could not stop himself. And then Cowell testified in his own defense. And what he said in that courtroom was something that people who were there will not forget. He told the jury that Nia Wilson and her two sisters were not just three young women heading home on a Sunday night. He said he believed they were aliens. He said he believed they were gang members who had kidnapped his grandmother. He said he needed to rescue her. He said he took the knife out of his backpack, hid it under his clothing, and stabbed the sisters because they would not give his grandmother back. Judge Alan Heimer was not persuaded. Neither was the prosecution. And as the trial moved into the sanity phase, complicated by the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, which shut down the Oakland courthouse, Judge Heimer ultimately took the final sanity determination into his own hands and issued a directed verdict. He ruled that John Lee Cowell was sane at the time he murdered Nia Wilson. The jury had already returned its verdict during the guilt phase after roughly 2 hours of deliberations. Guilty. First-degree murder in the killing of Nia Wilson. Guilty. Premeditated attempted murder in the stabbing of Letifa Wilson. The jury also found the special circumstance allegation to be true, that Cowell had killed Nia while lying in wait, concealing his intent and attacking her by surprise. That finding meant only one possible sentence. In July of 2020, John Lee Cowell stood before Judge Heimer in Alameda County Superior Court and was sentenced to life in prison without any possibility of parole. Before the sentencing, 5 members of the Wilson family spoke to the court. Letifa stood up and looked at the man who had taken her sister and stabbed her and left her on a platform floor. She said, "I can't forgive you for what you have done. You are inhuman." And then she said something else. She said, "I have to forgive you for the peace of my family." Tashia stood up too. She looked at Cowell and said 3 words directly to him. "You took our baby." Cowell chose not to make a statement to the court. Almost 8 years have passed since the night of July 22, 2018. John Lee Cowell is in prison. He will die there. The courts called it what it was, deliberate, premeditated, a man lying in wait for 2 young women who had done nothing to him and had no idea he was coming. And still, after all of it, after the arrest and the delays and the trial and the testimony and the verdict and the sentencing, the question that opened this whole story still does not have a real answer. Why Nia? Why Letifa? Why that Sunday night on that platform? Cowell gave his answer on the stand. Aliens. Grandmother. A story that a judge and a jury and every person in that courtroom heard and did not believe for a second. And maybe that is the closest thing to a why that this case is ever going to produce. Not a reason. Just a window into a level of disconnection from reality so complete that it leaves everyone who hears it feeling something they cannot quite name. Because here is the truth about cases like this. Sometimes there is no why that is big enough. Sometimes violence is just violence. And what it leaves behind is a shape in the world where a person used to be, a shape that nothing fits back into. What was taken was Nia Wilson's life. At 18 years old, she was still in the early pages of her story. She was the girl who got down beside a dying stranger at a memorial in downtown Oakland and stayed with her until the end, because the girl asked her to, and Nia did not know how to say no to someone who needed her. She was the girl who stepped forward at a family gathering and performed the Heimlich maneuver on her aunt while everyone else was still figuring out what to do. She was the girl holding a job interview secret close to her chest because she wanted it to be hers before she shared it. She was the girl dressed her best on a Sunday afternoon in Concord, taking pictures, laughing, living a day she did not know was going to be her last. She showed up for people. Over and over. In big moments and small ones. Without being asked, without looking for credit, without hesitation. And the people who loved her carry that every single day. Letifa carries it, the sister who stayed on that platform floor and held her and told her she had her and could not save her anyway. Tashia carries it. Their father Ansar Muhammad carries it. Malika Harris carries it. The entire community of Oakland that took Nia's name into the streets and refused to let the world move on without an accounting, they all carry it. Because Nia Wilson was so much more than what happened to her at MacArthur BART Station. She was a daughter. A sister. A cousin. A friend. A girl with music in her and dreams ahead of her and a way of showing up for people that the people around her are still feeling the absence of every single day. She was someone whose future deserved to happen. And even now, almost 8 years later, her name still means something. Her story is still being told. And it deserves to keep being told, for as long as there are people who need to hear it. Rest in peace, Nia Wilson. If this episode stayed with you, if Nia's story is still sitting with you right now, please hit the like button. It costs you nothing and it puts this story in front of more people who need to hear it. Subscribe to Cases Decoded if you have not already. We cover every case the way it deserves to be covered, with the full story, the real names, the verified facts, and the respect every victim deserves. And drop a comment below. Tell me where you are watching from and what time it is over there right now. Tell me what part of this story hit you the hardest. Tell me what you are still thinking about as you sit there. I will see you in the next one. This is Cases Decoded.